Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and this is the Kubey Darkness. Now, this is going to be a very quick review. This is not going to be like my normal reviews where I show the sharpening and testing and all that. I'm just going to quickly go through this. Psych! Of course we're going to show sharpening and cutting in this video. So here you see we have a recurved tanto in Austen steel. It's also a dual hollow grind. We'll talk more about that in a second. But using a rod is going to be the easiest way to do a recurve. Now if you have skinny stones, like say one of your flat stones, you can use the skinny end. You can use a ceramic rod. You can use little diamond rods. Lots of different ways to do recurves. Or if you have small, skinny stones like LANSKY stones. You know, stones that are like this thick. You can start off with the corner and use it like that. Here we're going to use this rod. So what I basically did was just like this. You do not want to use a lot of pressure. Now, if I wanted to remove steel, I would start off with the diamond rod first and then finish on the ceramic rod. And then now I'm going to just take a couple single passes. Now, I can keep this edge going for quite some time doing that. And then I would strop. Now, for the top part, same thing. You can use this, or you can use a regular stone on that part. Now this will, just this system alone, the Work Sharp Field Guided System, you can keep your edges maintained for a long time in between full sharpenings. But when you do a full sharpening on this knife, you're going to want either small thin stones or a rod. Very, very simple. Oh yeah, that's very sharp. Let's test that edge. So let's check this edge. Very, very nice. Very easy to tune this up with this. And like I said, full sharpening, you're going to want a diamond rod or a thin diamond stone or some sort of thinner stone. Like you can take one of your flat stones and lay them on the side. This one's pretty dirty, but you get the point. This is Austen blade steel, and it is a dual hollow ground blade. So we have a hollow grind here and up here, which is pretty unique. Normally with dual ground blades, it's a hollow here and then a flat right here. But this one stays nice and thin up towards the tip. So even the tip area is nice and slicey, which I liked. It's very unique. You don't see that very often. Now, they do have a version of this that is chamfered around the edges. I do talk about this thing being flat and a little squared off, but they have other versions of this that's slightly different. I'll show pictures of the other version. That's the same knife, it's chamfered or it's contoured around the edges, and I think the tanto might be just slightly different. So just know there are a couple different versions of this knife. But using this knife, this tanto works really good for EDC work. You have this recurved part that goes to this secondary tip that works really good for opening things up, opening packages, opening boxes, you know, things like that. And this flat part right here, being a hollow grind, nice and thin behind the edge, it cuts extremely well. I was breaking down double thick cardboard with it, and that was before I even tuned the edge up, and it was doing extremely, extremely well. I was very happy with its cutting performance. I got nice leverage into my cuts. I do feel this clip a little bit with my push cuts because it's on the side or on the back side of the handle instead of being perfectly centered, but it still cut very, very well, and I was very happy with the way it performed. Now the front end of the knife, that's going to be good for, possibly light scraping, maybe light duty prying, but you can use it for your roll cut type of things, maybe cutting up food or things like that. But the tip also works really good for utility cuts because it does have a drop point to it, so it's easy to get to that tip. Even though it is a tanto, that is one good thing. The tip does drop straight down instead of going straight across like some tantos. This one drops down really good, so it's still very easy to get and use the first or the primary tip for utility cuts. Now we have a G10 scaled with steel liner locks. The steel liner lock is very easy to get to. As you can see, you can get to it from both sides. So even left-handed it'll be easy, which I don't see why it wouldn't. But a lot of times when the scale is up as close or as high as the liner, it's hard to get to because it's like you're fighting with the scale. In this case, very easy to get to. Now the flipper tab, if you look at it, it's kind of unique in a way. And when you flip it, it feels unique. Very, very good action. It's just, it's placed so good for your finger to be nice and comfortable. And even though it has this jimping right here, you don't feel, it doesn't bother you. At least it doesn't bother me. Great action. Very smooth on the drop. And you have the reverse flicking hole, which is also easy to get to, easy to access, very easy to deploy from, or you can use your thumb. So multiple different deployments. It is on bearings. Now I will say, when I first got it, I was a little underwhelmed. I'll just say that. And I know why. Because the scales, they have, I don't want to say corners, but it feels kind of squared off. And it made me feel like it was more budget than it actually feels to me now. I've actually grown to appreciate it a little bit more than it is, but you know, not being contoured, flat scales, it's just a corner right here. This isn't rounded right here, and all those little things made me feel like they didn't put as much effort into it. But now that I've had it for a while, I do appreciate it a little bit more. One, the ergos are really good. Even though it is squared off, it doesn't feel contoured, but it's nice and comfortable in the hand. Now, I do feel the clip a little bit. I do wish they would have centered that. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the bad. But in the hand, it's still really good. You have a little place right there where you can kind of get up nice and tight. And if you do need to do a push cut, you can kind of just go right over that area. And cutting with this thing, it cuts really, really good. I haven't sharpened it yet, but the edge is just held up really. It needs it now. It does need a sharpening now. And I know it's a recurved tanto. Maybe I need to do a video on how to sharpen a recurved tanto, but it's pretty simple. But that is going to be the one downfall to some people that don't like recurves. But if you do like a recurve, man, this blade shape is so useful. This tip right here, you can use it like a claw and just hook into things and open things up, like open boxes up and packages without damaging anything on the inside. And then since this hollow grind is nice and thin up here, if you are going to do some scraping or maybe some very light duty prying, it's nice and thin to get up underneath things or in between things. And then you have a nice thin edge right here for slicing and cutting. 15 thousandths in this area, 18 thousandths in this area. So it is a little thinner right here than it is right here, but this is still a hollow. So it stays 18 thousandths, quite a bit up the blade. And that's a very, very slight. 18 thousandths in this area would be really nice. So to have 15 thousandths here, 18 thousandths there, that's really, really nice. Now, like I said, it is riding on ceramic bearings, ceramic detent ball. We do have a couple standoffs back here. The construction is nice and strong, very, very solid. We have full steel liners that are milled out, so the weight is very light on this guy. That is another thing. You think it's going to be heavier than it is. It's very light. Man, that action. So, couple negative things, if I was going to come up with a couple negative things before I really talk about some more good things. I'm not a big fan of T6s. We do have T6s. Luckily, there's only two, aside from the clip, but I'd rather see T8s. Not that big of a deal, but it's still an issue for me. I'd rather the clip be centered. I don't like it when they're off to the side because then in the hand, you tend to feel them a lot more, and I feel this one quite a bit. Even though it is comfortable in the hand, I still feel that clip. And it doesn't really bother me working with this so much as me just squeezing it right now, because when I work with it, I tend to put pressure right here on the spine like this, and it kind of pulls it out of the way. But when I just grip it like this, yes, I feel it quite a bit. Not in the push cut, but just primarily back here. Next thing, like I was saying before, you know, I did feel like it was a little, you know, they didn't do enough work. You know, they could have chamfered this edge a little bit, rounded it off, because you can see how thick the G10 is on both sides. I kind of wish they contoured it just a little bit right here on the edges, chamfered it around the edge. That would have been really nice. Next thing, I'm not a big fan of bead blasts. Bead blasts tend to be the first, or the type of finishes that do show rust or patina, things like that, are usually, not usually, but in many cases, bead blasted finishes. Bead blasted finishes just tend to hold moisture more. Now, this is Austen. I'm not worried about it with this steel. However, I do like Stonewash just a little bit better. However, Kubey does a really good job with their bead blast. Nice, even finish to where it, you know, it looks really good and it holds up really good, and it tends to hide scratches pretty good, you know, as long as they're not too deep. But next thing, this choil, I wish they would have did this just a little bit better. Now, it's okay. I don't even want to complain about this one, because this is better than a lot of companies. But you see where the plunge grind is. I mean, I guess they did leave you quite a bit. I'm not going to complain about that one. So I'm going to take that back. They did a pretty good job on that one. But the next thing, really? Okay. The speed holes on the clip. I'm not a fan of the speed holes on the clip. I do think it, you know, I'm not a big fan of the speed holes on the clip. But other than those things, man, this thing is pretty awesome. I know I'm sitting here fumbling it because I'm trying to do this under a camera, but I do like it quite a bit. It's very reasonably priced. Now, Kubey has a lot of great knives, so if this one's not your cup of tea, they probably got one that's your cup of tea, because they have a lot of great options and a lot of great price ranges. Now, this one's blade shape kind of reminds me of the Keen Natter, if you look at it. But now, if you look at the Keen Natter is flat grind up here. This one's a hollow. So I do like the grind on this one a little bit better than this one. Now, some people might want it a little bit more robust up here. I guess it just kind of depends on what your plans are with the knife. But in this case, they made it extra slicey, which I do like. And it is still a drop point blade, so you can easily use that tip. So a lot of Tontos, the tip is more back here. In this case, they did around this front end, and they dropped the tip, so it's very easy to use that front tip area. Now, Kubey did send this knife to me, so, you know, I'm not sure if I would have just naturally picked it out for myself, you know, paying with it for my own money. But I'm glad I did get it in hand and get to check it out, because it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's especially for the price category. You know, I always got to remember that the price category of where a knife is, and for the knife, man, for the price, this is a great knife. Stupid smooth, great detent, and I always felt like the detent was light, but it's not easy to fail. It's just you have so much leverage on this flipper tab that it's not easy to fail. But when you just first pull it, you feel, that was my fault. When you first pull it, you feel like it's a light detent, but it's not at all. It's just you have so much leverage into this flipper tab, and it's hard to fail. Trying to fail it without hitting the table or my hand. Almost got it. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's not easy unless if you do one of those where you go like this. In that case, yeah, anybody can fail a knife like that. But if you actually put your finger on the flipper tab and pull down until it breaks, It works good. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.